Yep, we were on number 5, approving the consent agenda. I'll read through the items, and if any trustee would like an item removed, we can do that. So A, in the consent agenda is the minutes from the regular meeting for Tuesday, 21 June 2022. B, the expenditures cash disbursement detail report for June 2022. Also in the consent agenda, under other action items, is an ordinance approving and adopting the annual budget and appropriation for library purposes for the fiscal year beginning 1 July 2022 and ending 30 June 2022. And also under other action items, remodeling project phase 1 master plan concept design from Sheehan Nagel Hartray Architects Limited, and this was from the Committee on Facilities and / the COW meeting. So would anyone like anything removed from the consent agenda?
Daniel, I'm sorry, I just noticed this, probably just for clarification, under the other action items, number 1, the ordinance, the ending date should be the 3rd June 2023.
Thank you, Joe. Ending 2023. Gotcha. Thank you.
Negative one day.
Yeah, the ordinance is correct, so we'll update the agenda on the website.
Okay. Would someone like to make a motion then?
Oh, real quickly, I don't have anything to take off. I do just want to say for the audience and for everybody watching, this item C2, you mentioned it was a matter that we discussed at the committee of a whole, and you also said facilities, but it was the committee of a whole 2 weeks ago. And it was a very long discussion, a 3-hour meeting for this remodeling project. That it's a very significant item, but it is on the consent agenda because we all were at the committee of the whole and all discussed it together. So I think it's just worthy of kind of saying that.
Sure.
And thank you for updating the actual item, the recommended and action for the adjustment wording that we talked about during the committee of the whole. That's it. I don't think we need to take it off.
That was a great highlight. Thank you. Okay, a motion then to approve the consent agenda?
I so move.
Thank you, Mary Ann. And a second?
I'll second.
Second, Christy. And any further discussion? And this is a roll call vote, George? Or?
This can be a voice vote.
Okay, a voice vote. So all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And opposed, same sign. And it carries. Thank you. Number 6, we need a motion then to approve the agenda.
I so move.
Thank you, Elizabeth. And a second?
I'll second.
Catherine, you won.
Hello.
So we have a motion and a second. And any discussion of the agenda? Then all in favor say aye.
Aye.
And opposed, same sign. And it carries. Thank you. Moving on, number 7, financial reports. We have the working budget and cash and investments. And are there any questions?
I don't have any questions, but I have a couple comments if
Sure.
anybody wants to hear. So this is the year-to-date budget for the whole fiscal year. So this is an important one, and it's a really good way to kind of see how the whole year ended. This is obviously unaudited. The auditors will be here next month and working with Joe to get these numbers to be in an audited state, but we don't usually have any adjustments. So this is really year-to-date and year-to-date comparison to last year. So a couple of things I wanted to just highlight in the total expenditures, and the bottom of page 2 of 3 of the yellow goes all the way down to like the second to last subtotal, total library fund expenditures towards the bottom. It was about 3.1 million this year, but I wanted to note that our budgeted amount was about 3.4 million. So we came in total expenditures under budget. We did expend a little bit more than last year, but last year was COVID and shut down, and we had less expenses and all of that. But because we were under budget, we're able to actually additionally transfer $405,000 over and above what we had budgeted for the $600,000 to the special reserve. So I think that's another agenda item that will approve that transfer, but that's really kind of due to the fiscal responsibility of the spending and being under budget and just the great use of our funds. So those are the couple of things that I just wanted to highlight. Also, I'm just keep looking at my notes here. Then moving, where is special reserves, program expenses? Where did that go?
It looks like page 3, was it?
Yes, page 3 of 3.
Yes.
Down at the bottom.
Why don't I have page 3 in my?
Oh,
I don't think I have it. But anyway, I have it in my notes, so it's okay. If it's on page 3 and you all could see it. The special reserve expenditures was about $655,000. Everybody seeing that? But we budgeted 500. That budgeted amount is really not a budgeted amount. I talked to Joe about this. It was really just more of an estimate. We don't set a budget for the capital expenditures and the special reserves each year, but we know the projects that we're going to work on. The majority of that $655,000, thank you, was around the facade repairs. That was about $424,000. The telephone system was $109,000. And then we had the analysis for the space, the architects, some expenditures to get ready for what we just voted on that, and that was about $50,000. So that's the bulk of what that's in there, but you can still see that we're still accumulating more funds than we're spending each year, and it's in line with all the projects that we all approved. So those are kind of the things that I really wanted to focus on, and that we do have a total special reserves of the almost $6 million at June 30th. And that includes the additional transfer of $405,000.
The 1 million?
Well, an additional million total, but additional 405 that wasn't budgeted, yeah. That was it.
We appreciate that.
your 2 yellow pages got stuck together.
Is that what it was?
So that's on the other side, there it is.
Things I got before.
Any other
It got
comments
stapled back.
or questions on the budget?
Does this include the $1 million additional transfer?
Correct.
Yes, it does.
Both of the transfers, the 600,000, sorry, budgeted, and the additional 405,000 are included.
I thought it did, but I just wanted to clarify.
As a transfer out of library fund and transfer into special reserve. They're technically not considered revenues because they're within our organization, so they're considered as transfers.
It just shows us 2 separate lines.
Okay.
Did you have any questions?
I
Well,
will.
that was coming up, I'm sorry.
So-
Never mind.
That's all right. Thank you, Joe, and thank you, Jenny. Number 8 then, and Jenny already talked about this, but this is that good news of an ordinance transferring funds from the library fund, Fund 10, to the special reserve fund, and the amount of that transfer is $1,005,000. And Joe, do you want to just comment on why that's such a high transfer?
We have about 90,000 in additional revenues, a substantial portion of which, probably half of that, is the personal property replacement tax increase, which, to be honest with you, this year was astounding. And I don't know what it is for the next year. They publish an estimate usually early August, which is after our budget year, so we just have to put a minor guess in. And then savings within the salary budgets. We tend to budget towards the high salary budget for everybody working 100% for all positions, and typically that does not occur.
What is the personal property replacement tax? Yeah, what is that?
No, that's an excellent question. There was a tax on the personal property of corporations.
Don't look at me.
It's like a corporate income
Decades
tax.
ago,
Okay.
and it went away, and everybody objected to it, and so the legislature went back and put in this replace.
So you're not replacing
That's the
personal
solution.
property, they replace the tax.
It's like an income tax on corporations. is what
Okay.
it is.
I paid that tax. I now know what it is.
All right. Okay, thank you.
Well, we need a motion then to approve that transfer.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Andrew, and a second.
I'll second.
Thank you, Jenny. Any discussion? Then we can do a voice vote, so all in favor say aye.
Aye.
And opposed, same sign, and it carries. Thank you. Number 9, the triennial update of the capital asset study. George, would you introduce that?
Sure. The board passed a policy a few years ago after the referendum that called upon the library to, every 3 years, update the capital asset study, which I think is a great policy because it basically says that we're going to continue to review and update our capital maintenance and improvement needs more or less continuously, or continually rather. And so this is the fiscal year, and so we requested a proposal from building technology consultants that helped us develop the original plan and the previous update. And this will bring us to our new update, which will be ready for approval in the spring, February, March of 2020.
And George, would you just comment on why the capital asset study is important?
Indeed, it lays out for us the state of each component of the building, whether it's carpet or roof or the facade project we recently completed, the chiller replacement project we recently completed. It gives us a lifespan, an estimated lifespan to be sure, and an estimated budget so that we can intelligently plan for these kind of capital maintenance needs over the course of time. And each time we update the plan, it's developed with a 20-year life, although a lot can happen in 20 years, which is why the board decided to update it every 3 years, so that we're always very much on top of what the building and grounds needs are on a regular basis. And it really, I think it was a key element of why the community approved the referendum in 2018, because we could demonstrate unequivocally that there is a need here to maintain this magnificent gateway to downtown, and it takes money to do it. It's a 54,000 square foot house, essentially, a house of reading. And Jenny,
Oh, I just, so can you remind me, the original capital assets study originally happened in 2017? Is that right, around then? And then we did it 3
Yes,
years later, we
2020.
updated it in 2020, and now we're going,
for 2023.
okay. I'm sure I was a part of the board that adopted the policy for the every 3 years, so I'm sure I'm saying something that's, if you go back and look, I probably voted the other way. But I have a concern that this, I get what you're saying, and I definitely think that it needs to be updated regularly. I think from 2020, or even 2017 to 2020 to 2023, and the amount of projects that we have actually taken on and done, I don't know if I find it worthwhile to spend another $11,500 to do an update in 2023. That's just, I would prefer to defer that another year or two.
I was just thinking it was so important that we do it, especially since we're deviating for the architectural project from the master plan, but this is really important that we do it, especially now, going forward. The master plan, especially for the downstairs, we're reconfiguring all that, and I think it would be really important.
I see your point, but I don't know if the timing aligns with the redesign, and if we're gonna have this update, and
Will
then,
they mesh
and then,
together?
will they be too much together or intermixed to not be worthwhile to get you that information? I don't know that, and so I think we
The
have
question-
something that's fairly recent in 2020, and we know that the landscape hasn't changed that significantly.
But we have done so many updates that we can cross out.
Right.
some of those, so.
The question is, are there elements that the architects would be looking at in doing this renovation that would dovetail with this?
In part, yes.
Because they're not totally separate. I mean, all of this is interlocked in some way.
Right.
So, and I don't know what my follow-on question is. Is the follow-on question, okay, if they're going to look at some things, do we need somebody else to look at other things? Do we make these work together?
The PTC is going to evaluate all the carpet, and the architects are going to come in and do the same thing 6 months later. What's the value in asking two people to do the same thing?
We have actually told BTC in requesting this, and I think there's some language in the proposal that talks about this, that we have both the architectural firm working on elements of this right now, and we have Alara Engineering, which in fact was the subcontractor in 2017 for the mechanical electrical pieces when we developed the original master plan, working on our HVAC system. And so in order to avoid duplication, we identified this. And so on page 3 of the report, it says in 2.3, it is our understanding that the library is engaged in several projects with Alara Engineering and Sheen Nagel Hartrey Architects. BTC will work closely with each project team to incorporate costs associated with their respective projects in our analysis. The pieces that are separate include things like the roof, the elevator, other site elements, things like that. Other mechanical, electrical, fire protection pieces. So there's definitely things in the capital asset plan that won't necessarily be directly touched by the architects, for example, but there definitely is overlap. So I think both points of view are well taken in this.
If we should proceed with this, would the information gathered and gleaned from this be of value to the architects and that project, or vice versa?
I think it's the vice versa. I think the architects and the Alara Engineering are going to provide input
To this?
to give a sort of a complete snapshot of all the building systems. In that sense, that may or may not be a useful thing. The architects aren't dealing at all with the roof, so we have a projection from our annual roofing inspection that we have another 5 years or so, I think, plus or minus, before we need to replace the roof. So there's that. We're already incorporating HVAC issues into the architectural work, so there probably isn't, other than identifying, I don't think there's going to be any duplication of effort in this. Because I think what she and Nagel, Hartran, and Laura will do is identify these are the pieces that we are working on. And I don't know quite exactly how that blends together, but I don't think BTC is going to be duplicating what they're doing or vice versa. But, you know, is there enough not in the other project? Honestly, I don't know how to answer that. Good, yeah.
Well, and to your point, we get an annual roof assessment. We just did the facade, we just did the windows, we just did the lot. It
We've
seems
done
like a lot of the
ones.
big things
Yeah.
that they are in this proposal have been done or have been assessed to be with their useful life already. And we have something from 2020. If we had something from 2017, I think, yeah, like it's time, and we haven't done any of these projects. I just think it might be duplicate.
Well, the board adopted the policy. The board.
I started my comment with, I'm sure I know that.
And the follow-up is the board can amend or change or, you know, really it's your policy. So you can change it however you want to change. And that's the beauty of this, you know. I think the idea, of course, on the heels of the referendum and the initial round of work we're doing was to make sure that we didn't let it go for 10 years.
Sure.
You know, so if you tack on another couple of years and we do it, you know, on a 5-year cycle this time around, or some, whatever, you know, that I have no way of knowing what difference it makes or doesn't make, but it's, my only comment is I would hate for us to not do it on some meaningful cycles.
Sure, agreed. And the meaningful part of that is where I'm kind of going to as well, knowing that we're going to have these architects in here and we have this study already going on. I don't know if this is the meaningful time just because it happens to be the 3rd year.
Right.
When do you think would?
I don't know.
No, but I mean, in terms of, because if we're talking about, say, not approving this, then we should probably have in the notes when we think would be the next meaningful time.
Oh, yeah, like I agree with George. I don't think it should be something that's not looked at regularly. I would think the 5-year mark is the maximum. I would think that we should look at it, but I don't think.
Yeah. I suppose you could just like skip this cycle and then the policy kicks in again in 3 years from now.
And then we have the renovations.
Yeah.
I don't know.
The irony of all this is that the renovation remodeling project was pushed off for 2 years because of the pandemic.
Yeah.
So I think literally we had gone out with the RFQ and began that process in 2020, the same spring that the last plan was approved. And then the board, because of the strange situation we found ourselves in, put the architectural selection on hold until late 2021.
But what we didn't put on hold was some of these projects that came out of the capital asset study
Right.
and in the 17 and the 2020 update. And
Right.
that, I think, is the more important part of it.
Absolutely.
That we actually did so many of these projects over the past 2 years.
And we hear all the time, I think, from our colleagues in the library world and from members of the community, how good the building looks. I mean,
Yeah.
even the carpet, if we can get as good a carpet the next time around as we got the first time around, because this is 20 old carpet, you know, and there's some areas of the building, the carpet looks, you know, really worn, but it's amazing to me how well so much of this is held up because we've cleaned it, we've maintained it. And that's the goal, is to maintain it and not be stuck like a lot of organizations with massive amounts of deferred maintenance.
Would it not make sense that should the architects in working on that project find some major issue with mechanical, electrical, plumbing, fire protection, whatever, bring it to our attention, of course,
And they would,
At which time we would then make a decision about fixing that, replacing it, or doing whatever might be necessary. And we would then know that we didn't need this because they told us. And it would make sense to kind of move this to another time, the meaningful time, whatever that might be. Because I can't imagine that they would find something that they wouldn't bring up to us. Something critical, I should say.
In my mind, it's just, to Jenny's point, it's just a duplication of efforts.
Yeah.
If the architects are walking through the building and saying, looking at everything and saying, we need a new coat of paint here, or we need new carpet here, these kind of things, then, and if that's what they're all gonna be doing, and we're paying this 2 different people that tell us the same thing. So,
And I think we already know from the capital asset plan that we need to update the finishes, the lighting, the carpet, and
I just want to make sure that there's something these guys, the BTC is going to look at that we have no other plans to look like. Like you mentioned the roof, somebody looks at that already. We do an elevator inspection yearly, I would guess, for permits.
and things like the roof, we provide the latest reports to BTC.
Sure.
Because what we're trying, part of this, of course, is budget planning.
Right.
Um,
And consolidation of all the information in one spot, instead of
Yep.
having 27
Yeah, and
spots.
I completely agree with that effort. I just don't know if we need an update from what we have from 2020.
Yeah, no,
Because
I-
I think we have that budgeting system outlined for the next 5 years of what we were going to do.
Well, and we've got another, if you count the HVAC piece, we've got really 2 massive projects that we're at the beginning stages of. So I'd be happy to propose that we basically skip the 22-23 cycle and pick it up again in 25-26. That'd be the 3 years from now. Because by that time, we'll have quite a bit of work that's done.
How does that jive with our overall schedule for the?
Well, I think we'll know more.
Right.
as we work.
I know it depends on our progress and
Yeah.
getting.
And the board
feedback
can
from
always
architects.
change that again, but by
Sure.
just skipping a cycle in the existing policy and not changing the policy per se, that means that it's set, particulars in the office should tell us, okay, coming up to July of 2025, it's time to request a proposal, which is what I did. It's like, oh, it's July,
Yeah,
let's
okay.
get an update. Yeah.
No, right.
It seems like
Policy
the
says
path
we
of
should get it
least
every 3
resistance.
years, and that's, I mean,
We
the
should
other option
discuss
is
it
we
for
just
sure.
delay it a year. Like you could delay until next year and then restart the
Yeah.
cycle next year, but.
We'll know a lot more once the schematic design piece really gets into full bloom, because that's a lot of detail that's going to come out of that.
I mean, it's an unfair comparison here, but we could kick this down, kick the can down the road by a year, not because we're trying to avoid, but because we don't need to look at it, and then we just keep it on the agenda for next year. But maybe, I hate to waste PTC's time to put together a proposal, maybe it's a discussion as to, depends on where we are with the architectural stuff. If we're moving, if a year from now, we're ready to start doing major changes inside the building, then having these guys walk through, I think is a waste of their time and money. So I would think either waiting a year for this and reassessing the proper time to do it, or just skipping the cycle and doing it again in 3 years. I think as we close out the architectural, whatever we do inside the building, that would be another good time to look at everything else and start cycling that into our schedules.
So George, you just want to put a reminder to revisit then?
Well, it depends on whether you decide to move it a year or to skip a cycle. I think the board needs to make a decision, and we'll, in the office, we'll set up whatever tickler works.
I'm good with being right.
I would recommend just revisiting it next year and then possibly skipping the whole cycle, but
Yeah, I think
Yeah,
I think that's fine. Do we need to vote on that then, George?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
Depends on how formal you want to be in the minutes. We'll put this in the minutes either as the consensus of the board was thus, or you voted.
Or,
Four. I think we do have the consensus.
I do.
Yeah.
Christie, are you okay with it?
Yeah, you've convinced me. Good job.
Revisit and then you. Okay.
Okay, number 10, black backflow preventer. George, would you introduce him?
Are you on the phone call, Kathy?
Excuse me?
No, I'm sorry, Kathy Mocher, not Kathy Hubbard.
Yes, I'm here.
Would you, in 100 words or less, could you explain what a backflow preventer is?
Oh, Lord. We have currently five backflow preventers on different water systems, fire protection, boilers. I can't think of what the other ones are, but the state requires us to put one on our domestic water, the main line that goes into the library for domestic water. So we got bids for it, and it's been a process, and we've narrowed it down to the one that you see on the agenda. It's a necessary thing. It can't be put off. It's already behind.
Thank you, Kathy. And I will say that this was identified in the original capital asset study, and but we also had information from the city saying that we were not required to do it, which we were not at the time. And we got a letter from the building commissioner at the time saying that the building code that Batavia has adopted doesn't require this, you are exempt from this. We got it in writing. So in the 2020 plan study, it actually states that we are exempt. And then in 2021, late 2021, or early 2022, but I can't say all that, we get a notice from a contractor for the city saying that we are, going to be in violation if we don't put in a backflow preventer. So we double check with the building commissioner, and then I put in my report, and he said, yes, they have changed. He said, there's been a change in requirements, and a backflow preventer is now required on domestic water services. And they wanted us to have it done by June 1st, but frankly, getting all the proposals and things took some more time. And I won't go into all the great details, but there was a lot of technical details that we had to respond to for the three bidders in terms of what is going on downstairs, and this is the result. So,
In 10 words or less, what is a backflow preventer?
it keeps the water from
Coming back up.
It protects.
Well, I kind of thought.
So it protects the municipal water supply out in the streets from anything that's in the building going back into the system.
Into that water supply.
Right.
Okay. Thank you very
So they're really important on sprinkler systems, so we have one on these, they get tested annually on that. Because those they're out in the ground, they're low
Yeah.
pressure, it's easy for something to get into those
Okay.
lines. So you don't want those contaminants to get back into your drinking water.
much.
And so other places where, like the water system where we do chemical addition for the boilers, there's backflows on that because you don't want those chemicals
Okay.
into your potable water. So now I guess they're requiring them on, I don't know what the size is. But
It's actually, they're going to install a 2-inch, it's a 2-inch pipe.
I don't know why public buildings all of a sudden have to have it or don't. I don't know if it's a size, I don't know the plumbing code well enough.
That's
for that.
okay, I don't need
Yeah.
to know the plumbing code.
Yeah. We won't go there.
I was gonna say, I'm sure you can get plenty of information here on plumbing.
Yeah. I think we've got a 3-inch
Go
pipe,
deep.
and the proposal is to put in a 2-inch or vice versa, and we had to go out and get an engineering opinion on what we actually needed because we had different bids said different things, so we actually clarified that. Johnson Controls is a highly reputable company, and they were a remarkably low bidder, compared to some of the other ones. So, so we, as it says in the report, Kathy Mocher and I, excuse me, Kathy, recommend Johnson Controls for this work.
And George, the amount is the lower amount, $5,389.25.
Oh, yes. In the report, there was some confusion when I was putting together my report as to whether their bid included prevailing wage rates, which we are required to have as a local government. And after this went out, I heard back from our representative. He said, yes, this includes prevailing wage, and the price is the same. So,
Good.
so $53.89.25.
And City of Batavia waived the permit fees.
Well, we have to request that. Yeah, they don't waive them unless you actually go over there and fill out a form, but they waived them for something recently for us, Kathy. What did they waive them for? The concrete work? Moker?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear what the question was.
I was asking, the city waived some permit fees for us.
Right, there's they waive them, or they have us only pay a percentage of the permit fees.
We have to.
But I don't think there's a fee associated with this.
Oh, good.
It says it's demonstrating the willingness to sign it.
Oh, I put that in there to let you know that if there was a fee, they would waive it.
Okay.
Thank you, Kathy Moker.
Mm-hmm.
Would someone like to make a motion to approve the,
I so move.
thank you, Elizabeth, and a second?
Should we specify Johnson Control?
It's in there,
It is,
same.
okay.
I second.
And second, Jennifer. Any discussion? Then a voice vote will do. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And opposed, same sign, and it carries.
Thank you very much.
Every sweet, it's a fact.
Number 10, in the President's report, the City Council has invited us, and they have invited in the past other public bodies to meet with them at City Hall. So we will meet at City Hall on Tuesday, the 16th of August at 6:30, our regular time.
We'll be in the first floor conference room, the Fox River conference room, and then when our meeting is over, we will join the city council.
At 7:30.
That's my understanding at 7:30, but I made a note to double check once again with Laura and David to make sure that everything is set properly.
And where was that again, George?
It's the main conference room on the first floor. When you walk in by the police department and turn right, it's down the hallway
Okay.
on the right. Fox River Conference Room.
And at that meeting, the library will be making a presentation about lesser-known services and collections to help raise awareness about those. And
Well, more details to follow.
yes, exactly. Okay. Number 12, good news or comments from the board?
Well, the Friends of the Library had their sale, and it coincided with the Windmill Days, and it was one of the best revenue-producing sales that we have had in years. It was great, so we were really excited about that.
It may have been the highest sale amount ever.
Was it?
Wow. How big are we talking?
1,600 plus.
Wow,
Nice.
Yeah.
wonderful.
It was great.
Oh.
And our next sale will be, I believe, the second Saturday in August, and will be the educator sale, on August 13th. Check and make sure.
And the educator sale is where homeschoolers and public school teachers and everyone involved in education is invited to buy reduced price books.
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Well, thank you, Christy. That's great news, and the Friends do so much for us, and we appreciate it. Any other good news or comments from the board? Moving on, number 13, in correspondence. In the packet, you got our letter from Jesse White talking about the per capita grant. And this year, the award that we received is $38,727.60. And that is based on the population of the city and
Of the library.
of the library district. And we will, you'll let us know about how the funds are being spent?
Every year, the board gets a report as part of the application. I will note that the population of the letter is the 2020 census population, 26,256, which has gone down about 300 people, which has to be wrong. The city believes that their population, which also went down, is grossly in error. And they've already reached out to the Census Bureau about either filing appeals in certain areas of the community or doing a recount for Batavia. The Census Bureau put a freeze on recounts because apparently so much of the country thinks this needs to happen in their community. But we expect later this year or early next year that the city will get the approval for that, and we would expect our population to go up as a result of that recount. So I think we had a very good census campaign, but apparently there were portions of the district that just, if they were counted, they didn't make it into the final number according to the city's GIS.
I think there's something to be said too about the door-to-door stuff during COVID.
Yeah.
It had something to do with that too, that some of the follow-up just couldn't happen, or even if people did go door-to-door, people weren't answering.
Yeah. Our neighboring library district to the north, their population went up actually substantially, so we don't know why these things happen. But I also will point out that the standard for the per capita grant was $1.25 per capita. The Secretary of State's office has raised that, and we're actually receiving, all libraries are receiving $1.47.50 per capita at this point. So we're excited by that. I think last year was the first time they boosted that amount, and so we're happy for the extra money for the good work we did.
Number 14, directors and librarians reports. Joanne, did you, I see stuff, so.
Of course, I was waiting to see if George had something he wanted to say first, but I would be happy to speak.
That's okay.
I will send, Hans does some very nice posters for us to kind of highlight, share some of the programming we're doing this summer. The last one is mine, so that's not as beautiful as the ones that Hans brings about. But as my report stated, we have more than 1,000 children registered, and they continue to come in and do their reading rewards for summer reading club. So we're very excited about that. They're picking up rewards and spinning the wheel and picking new books for prizes. Once again, we took Summer Reading Club to Mooseheart, which we've been doing for the last haven't done the last few years, but did that previously. Had a rather small turnout this year because fewer students are staying on their campus for the summertime. But still, we really, Amanda was doing that and I went this last week. We really feel that that is a great opportunity for those children, and everyone who participated this last week, I was happy and very honored to give them each a choice of a book for them to keep for their home collections, and they all were very happy about that. Just a few highlights of this last year. Over 180,000 items were checked out from the Youth Services collection. That's not counting electronic items. And over 159,000 items were checked, print items were checked out, and that's 55.3% of all print items that were checked out in the library were checked out from Youth Services. Keep in mind, moms do take out stacks of books. But that's very exciting. There's a lot of checkout going on down there. Over 3,600 items were added to the collection,
We went up in reference questions from last year by 34% increase in our reference, answering reference questions. Doing outreach, we were able to do 6 outreach visits. Programming is going back up, and really we have shifted totally since the beginning of this year when COVID locked our programming down somewhat to all in-person programming. IS is offering all in-person programming again, and that is really great. And you're seeing on these posters just the happy faces of everyone attending YS programs. So we're very happy about that. We also are very happy. I just want another highlight from my report are the cooperative programming that we're doing with some of our community organizations this year. We started that last year because we wanted to get out of the building because of COVID, but we so enjoyed that we thought, hey, why not try it again? So this week alone, yesterday, we had a presenter, I think you saw her in the cowboy hat, Miss Jamie, was down at the Peg Bond Center, and we had, I think, over 130 people there for that event yesterday morning.
Wow.
And tomorrow, 2 of us are going to Engstrom Park to do a drop-in craft. And we had fabulous attendance at the one we did in June, so we are prepared for 50 to 100 participants tomorrow. So we have our gym shoes ready to roll, and have a couple of our middle school volunteers coming out to help us with that as well. So we are really just enjoying those partnerships. The Park District, Main Street, the City of Batavia, the Depot Museum having, you saw, Caboose story times have become very popular. So we're really very excited about those partnerships that we've had, but are really trying to utilize more during the summertime as well. And just one more thing I wanted to highlight in my report is the retirement of our Youth Services Assistant, Amy Hong, who joined us in 2008, so 14 years ago. And you know, if you looked at how we decorate for Summer Reading Club and for Winter Library Club, and right now the baskets for our final drawing, if you complete Summer Reading Club, there's a few baskets out there. That's Miss Amy and her creative and artistic talent who pulls all that together. So Amy has been a fabulous customer service. If you came down the steps, she always had a smile on her face, or has a smile on her face. Very personable, and we will miss Miss Amy, but certainly feel happy for her and moving on to doing whatever she wants all day. So, unless anyone has any questions? I did have one more thing to say, and it has to do with the Friends. And I might have mentioned this at the last board meeting, but we had our family camp-in the Friday after the last board meeting. And the Friends were generous enough to open up the Friends sale to families that night, that Friday night. So it was an after-hours event. Families registered. We had outdoor activities. We had animals outside. We had indoor activities. But they generously opened up the Friends sale, and they gave each child attending that night a little coupon that they could trade for any children's item in the sale. It could be a book, it could be a DVD, it could be games. And I will say that several families, there were at least 3 families who came up to me after the event and said, we never even knew that this was back here. When they thought of the Friends sale, they thought of the corner across from the circulation desk. And they were so thrilled to see all of these items and were just anxious to come back. So hopefully they were back for that second Saturday sale and will be back again. And that was, I think when I announced that as part of our evening of activities, I could even see those people who I know have been to a sale, their eyes just light up and was like, wow, that is something exciting. So I appreciated Helen donated her time that evening to sit there for an hour and take in coupons, and I think they sold an additional about $11 worth of things.
When the
But-
kids can't decide.
But kids walked out with very nice things. So I appreciate the Friends kind of doing a little bit something out of the box for our family night, that night that worked out real well.
Very nice.
So, thank you.
I walked by the historical museum, it's right down the street from me, and it is just so crowded, it's so much fun. It looks like whatever you have, the reading.
Story time?
Out the
Mhm.
caboose and, yeah.
That is
out
a
the
lot of
porch.
fun down there.
It's great. Well
And
attended.
they've been opening up, Kate's been opening up the caboose. So after story time, the children can walk through the caboose, so they think that's fabulous. Thank you. Oh,
Thank you. Thank you, Joanne. The pictures just kind of remind us how important your work is getting all those young readers started. So that's
Thank you.
tremendous. Thank you.
I would mention just overall that we're really starting to see more of a normalcy in terms of the number of people coming to the library, the amount of use of the library. The year-to-date, end-of-year numbers for visitors is growing. It's still not what it was, but we had a 116,500 people visit this last year, which is like 9,700 people average per month, which is not bad. Way higher than the previous fiscal year, and on track, for the year before that. And but what we're seeing even more so is the increase in use of materials, both in-person and electronic. And the total circulation is the highest since the fiscal year 2018-2019. We have had just shy of 456,000 items checked out, and it's exciting to see. There's a lot of detail, as you can see in this snapshot that you can see on the back where it says total circulation, and above that we pull it out by adult and teen and children's materials just to give another perspective on how we're doing, and it's exciting to see that kind of number climbing back up again. So it's been we're starting to see more people in the parking lot, more cars in the parking lot, and it's exciting to see. So.
Another one of those numbers that stood out for me was 10,000 additional people attending programs, so 26,000 for the year. And that's really nice to see coming back. George, did you have any other director reports to highlight?
I think one thing that isn't in the written report, although I have a memory that I've mentioned this, but we're relaunching Books Between Bites in the fall. So September, the third Thursday of the month, September through May. And we've got a great lineup, and sometime next month in August we'll have the new program brochure out as we pin down what everybody's talking about, but we have a fantastic lineup. We're excited to bring that program back to the library. I think it's the 34th season overall, and it was at the United Methodist Church, and we was moved to the library when the library opened 20 years ago. So the last 2 years we didn't do it, but we're excited about bringing it back, and again adding, giving more in-person programming here at the library.
Thank you, George. Okay, number 15 is future agenda items, and that's a report. So moving on to 16, we will move into closed session for the appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of specific employees of the public body. We're not expecting anything to happen after that, but we will come back into open session to end the meeting. But we need then a motion to go into closed session.
I so move that we go into closed session.
Thank you, Mary Ann, and a second.
Second.
You were, I think you were late, Catherine.
Oh, you heard it.
A second by Christie. And we need a roll call vote for this.
Colada.
Aye.
Deitchman.
Aye.
Ford.
Aye.
Hubbard.
Aye.
Larson.
Aye.
Russo.
Aye.
Fasano. Aye.
Great. So we will go into closed session. And I just want to thank our visitors for coming today. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, it's enlightening to come and watch how all this works out.
Great, thanks.